There were weapons that were found as gifts, and were known as the divine arms. They were the materialization of one soul and had unique powers. There was a noble family that had once defeated an evil god in the past, known for their catastrophe abilities. All the members of that family possessed strong bodies, exceptional talent, and incredible divine arms. Bell was born into this same family and dreamed of becoming a hero, proudly wielding his sacred armament. However, things took a turn when, during his oracle ceremony, he discovered that he possessed no skills or abilities, becoming the first failure in his family's history. Outside the house, his brother Zane punched him, causing him to fall, and shouted for him to leave. Zane declared that a useless person like Bell wouldn't be able to summon any divine weapon. Jessica and Sarah were also present, but Sarah was the only one who expressed concern for Bell. As Sarah moved to help Bell, Jessica used her leg to trip Sarah, placing her foot on Sarah. She told her to just watch and not interfere, emphasizing the consequences of powerlessness. As Bell saw Sarah in that condition, he rushed to help her, but Zane quickly punched him, remarking that half-breeds surely get along well. Both Zane and Jessica then began tormenting Bell and Sarah. Bell reminded them that they were children of a concubine, hence called mongrels, which was why Zane and Jessica tormented them at every opportunity. After some time, Bell and Sarah sat together. He apologized to Sarah, blaming himself for being powerless. She reassured him not to worry and promised to always be by his side. Bell vowed to become strong even without a divine weapon and promised to protect her. Sarah thanked him and hugged him. However, he would soon be unable to fulfill that promise, because a few days later, he was banished from the house. Bell felt guilty leaving Sarah alone with those cruel people, and resolved to become strong enough to rescue her. He knew that even mastering a normal weapon wouldn't be enough against divine armaments, so he was determined to do whatever it took to grow stronger. He visited a weapon shop and, after spending a lot of gold coins, requested one of every kind of weapon available. The shopkeeper was shocked and asked if Bell was planning to start a war or something similar. 2 years later, Bell rode on horseback carrying some of his weapons, confronting a group of goblins. He wielded 2 weapons in hand and placed the others on the ground. Challenging them to begin, he unleashed a flurry of attacks, slashing through the monsters to eliminate them. Meanwhile, a man wearing an overcoat, hiding his face, observed Bell's battle. He asked Bell if he always carried all those weapons with him, and wondered if it was a yearning for something beyond divine arms. The man had almost forgotten why he embarked on his journey: to find someone worthy of entrusting something to, someone with the potential to become a hero. Using his power, he emitted blue rays and presented something to Bell. Bell wondered if it was a sword, but upon touching and inspecting it, he discovered it was a scabbard Avalon. This artifact was used to store divine armaments and passed down through generations to preserve their power currently. It contained weapons wielded by the 5 great heroes of history. Anyone capable of wielding Avalon would become the strongest person in the world. Bell resolved to take up this challenge. 3 years had passed since then, and Bell stood atop a ruined building with a mysterious person who had given him Avalon. A red dragon threatened to attack Bell with its fiery breath. Bell remarked that he wasn't bothered by the heat. He summoned Avalon and focused to manifest the windshield Achilles, protecting himself from the dragon's flame with absolute storm. Following that, he summoned the thunder hammer Mjolnir and leaped to strike the dragon with Thor's hammer. Yellow electricity discharged upon impact, and the dragon was defeated. The strange man congratulated Bell on his mastery and urged him to go to his sister, now that even the S-rank paladin would consider him a threat. Bell agreed and rode his horse toward the place he had been banished from. 5 years ago, he now possessed the power to protect his sister. Upon arriving, however, he he found widespread destruction and a different flag flying. Suggesting a civil war, he hurried inside his former home, calling Sarah's name repeatedly in search of her. Opening a gate, Bell discovered Sarah's lifeless body. Shocked and devastated, he screamed in anguish and began to cry, questioning why he had gained all these powers and promising to protect her. Suddenly, a red beam struck him, and realizing it was from an S-rank divine arms user, Bell felt intense pain. The enemy asked if he was Bell, mentioning that Bell had been banished long ago. Confused and startled, Bell wondered how the enemy knew him. The enemy coldly revealed that he had arranged for Bell to meet his sister again. Bell realized with horror that this person was the one who had killed Sarah. The enemy taunted Bell, wishing him to keep his sister company. As Bell attempted to rise and retaliate, the enemy struck again, intent on killing him. Bell felt a deep sorrow for not being able to avenge Sarah's death. When Bell opened his eyes, he found himself facing a priest in the caretaker of cathedral, wondering how he had arrived there after dying. The priest instructed him to begin his oracle ceremony. Bell was stunned to hear this and questioned if he had returned in time. The priest asked him to hold out both arms and envision his divine armament. Bell realized he hadn't inherited Avalon yet and feared he would be banished again. However, during the ceremony, he discovered Avalon. He believed that now he could redo everything and change fate with this newfound power. The priest said that it was so rare. Bell asked if the priest thought that he couldn't fight with it. The priest replied that it wasn't what he meant. Bell told him not to worry and that it's the best divine armament. Then he rushed to meet Sarah in her room. And as he opened the gate of Sarah's room, she was happy to see him. He thought that he hadn't seen her for a long time, and she was as beautiful as he remembered. She rushed to him and asked how his ceremony had gone. He didn't reply, just hugged her. Happy that she was alive, she asked if there was anything wrong. He felt sorry that he hadn't been able to save her in their past life, but now he wouldn't let that happen and would save her. While he was hugging her, she said it hurt. He apologized and let her go. She said it was fine and was happy that he hugged her. Then she noticed he was crying, so she patted his head and said everything would be fine. Then Zane came in, referring to them both as mongrels, and said they were getting along. Zane came to Bell and said he had heard everything from the priest about Bell finding something interesting in the oracle ceremony. Bell thought it seemed like the priest had already told Zane everything. Then Bell revealed that it was a scabbard. Zane laughed loudly upon hearing that, saying it wasn't a weapon and suited a mongrel like Bell. He asked how Bell would be able to fight with it, and commented that they both were idiots. Bell told him to take back those words. Zane asked him to say that again. Bell repeated his demand to take it back. Zane became angry, questioning how Bell dared to talk to him like that, and vowed to teach Bell how to address his older brother. As he moved to punch Bell, Bell retaliated with a powerful punch of his own. Bell warned him not to insult Sarah again. Zane, furious, drew his spear and threatened to make Bell cry and beg. Bell recognized it as the same spear. Realizing Zane was serious, Bell told Sarah to step back, saying he was fine and leaving Zane to him. He then drew Avalon. Zane asked if Bell thought he could beat him with that, reminding him that he was an E-rank paladin. Bell explained that paladins were ranked based on their strength, starting at F rank upon receiving their divine armament, and upon mastering mana channeling, they would become E-rankers. The D rank and above were able to use mana for special attacks, and upon reaching B rank, they could awaken unique divine armament abilities. Bell thought Zane was overly proud of his E-rank status, considering he was still developing. Bell smiled, irritated. Zane asked why he was laughing, and if he had something crazy in mind. Bell denied it, saying he just found Zane cute. Enraged, Zane prepared to attack, but Bell manifested the Sword of Light and, using Caliban, drew a sword and slashed at Zane's spear. Zane was shocked to see Bell's sword and fell back, finding his spear broken. He felt perplexed since he knew the scabbard was empty. Bell then asked if Zane wanted him to make him cry and beg. Zane blamed Bell, accusing him of trickery for having a weapon while Zane did not. He warned Belle that he wouldn't get away with it. Then he started running away. Belle asked why Zane was running, and that they hadn't finished talking yet. Belle then took out the flame gun Ragnarok and fired a shot at the wall beside Zane. Zane was shocked to see the gun, thinking Belle had just been using a sword and couldn't possibly wield more than one. Divine Armament Belle told Zane not to mess with Sarah again, threatening to blow Zane's head off if he tried. Zane, scared, ran away. Sarah remarked that Belle was amazing. Belle asked if she was okay. She agreed, admitting she was scared Zane might beat them again. But now Belle had a divine armament too. Belle assured her to leave everything to him. She complimented him, saying he was so cool. Belle thought that as long as he could protect her smile, he wouldn't lose to anyone. The scene shifted to Duke Gallien's residence, where Zane reported everything to his father Gallien. Gallien asked if it was true that Belle used multiple divine armaments. Zane knelt and revealed that Belle's armaments weren't normal, suggesting Belle may have made a pact with a demon, and recommended banishing him from the house. Gallien found it interesting and started heading out. Zane asked where he was going. Gallien replied that he was going to meet Belle and verify if it was true or not. Belle lay on his bed thinking that despite being able to defeat Zane, his body was still that of a child. He felt exhausted because he couldn't control his mana well. He tried to shoot a fire bullet, but it turned out to be a tributeless instead. Currently, he was as strong as an F ranker, but he couldn't remain at that level. He remembered from his past life that it was the Rothwindersaws who had attacked then, another paladin family with a long rivalry against the Karastrovs. If their enemies were attacking them now, someone must have provoked them. This time he vowed to protect Sarah, and to do that, he needed to improve his status within the household. Suddenly Gallien entered his room, remarking that it had been a long time since they had last met. Belle wondered why his father had come there. Belle recalled that in the battle 20 years ago, Galillion had fought alone against the evil god and the famous monster Tartaros, cutting his way through to the Black Continent, where the monsters lived. That was why he was known as the Genesis Sword Saint. Belle noticed that Zane had also come along. Belle thought that if Zane had already told his father everything, it might be an opportunity for Belle to improve himself and make his father notice him. Belle knelt down to show respect to Gallien as the Duke. Gallien commented that Belle had changed a lot since they last met, but reassured him that he didn't need to be formal, as his father had come to see him. Belle replied that he was afraid he couldn't relax, explaining that saying the wrong word could cause the conversation to spiral out of control, and they would always be held accountable for their words and actions. Gallien then asked Belle to rise, and assured him that if Belle wanted formality, Gallien would reciprocate. Belle felt a crushing pressure, and wondered at the terrifying aura Gallien possessed. Gallien asked about Belle's altercation with Zane, reminding him that fights between brothers were forbidden in the house. He questioned why Belle had hurt Zane, whom Belle should have shown respect. Zane smiled confidently, feeling that it was the end for Belle, as no one in the house dared to oppose Gallien. Belle explained that he was angered because Zane had bullied Sarah. Again, Gallien asked if Belle had broken his rules over a petty grudge. Belle admitted that he had no regrets about it. Gallien then asked if Belle regretted breaking his rules. Belle replied that abandoning those they love would be a disgrace to a paladin, and he would fight to protect his sister, even if he had to oppose his older brother. It was the path of the night he had chosen. Gallien drew his sword and placed it at Belle's neck, asking if Belle would still fight, even if his opponent were Gallien himself. Unfazed, Belle agreed. Impressed, Gallien commented that he liked Belle's resolve and would let the incident slide. Zane was shocked and asked for the reason. Gallien pointed out that not only had Zane bullied his sister, but he had also lost to his younger brother, which was a shameful display. He ordered Zane not to show his face for some time. Turning to Belle, Gallien acknowledged Belle's knightly resolve and appreciated his willingness to speak his mind, despite the weight of his words. Belle apologized for his brashness and recognized it as a bold stance. For a member of the Catastrophe household, Galleon then expressed his desire to see Bel's power and instructed him to summon his divine armament. Bel agreed and drew his Avalon. Galleon was shocked to see it and recognized it as the legendary divine armament that held the spirit of the original paladin, the very same weapon wielded by history's greatest heroes. He mentioned that Zane had told him Bel used both a sword and a gun. Was that true? Bel confirmed it and revealed that both were contained within the scabbard. He then withdrew the two divine armaments. Surprised, Galleon observed that Bel had managed to draw them out. Bel explained that he could only use two at once, but there were three other weapons inside the scabbard. Galleon was stunned and wondered if Bel might become the next hero. He expressed that while he had no interest in the weak or children, he had high expectations for Bel. As he left, Galleon instructed Bel to work hard. After Galleon departed, Bel relaxed from the pressure and sat beside his bed, determined to prove his strength. As Galleon expected, despite having come from the future, he was still a child, but he was determined to quickly reach D rank. To gain the man, he needed to achieve this. He planned to hunt orcs in the nearby forest. The scene shifted to a forest at night, where many orcs lay slain by a white wolf. The next day, as Bel reached the forest, memories of his past lives training there flooded back. After being banished from the mansion, he had spent several days in this very forest. However, something fell off. This time, despite venturing deep, he encountered no monsters. As he pressed forward, he stumbled upon the corpses of orcs. Just then, something rushed at him. Bel swiftly blocked the attack with his sword. Upon inspection, he discovered a Fenrir. Finally understanding why he hadn't encountered any monsters earlier, he considered fighting the ORC he had intended to face, but instead found himself confronted by a D-rank monster without sufficient mana, barely stronger than an E rank. Bel wanted to retreat, but heading back would mean facing the Fenrir's deadly onslaught. The Fenrir lunged at him with incredible speed. Bel dodged and attempted to shoot it with his gun, only for the shot to miss. He realized his bullets were too slow due to his mana deficiency, so he drew his sword instead, attempting to slash at the Fenrir. Bel found his attack dodged effortlessly. In his past life, defeating a Fenrir would have been easier, but now he struggled to keep up with its speed. The Fenrir managed to nick Bel with a small cut and continued its barrage of attacks. Bel couldn't dodge them all. As the Fenrir prepared to attack him again, Bel realized he had just reincarnated and couldn't let it kill him. He raised his shield to block, but the Fenrir swiftly attacked from a different angle, knocking him down. Bel feared it wouldn't stop and that he would die as his gun, sword, and shield seemed useless. Desperate, he considered his last option, the hammer. He was left with only one more divine armament. Reluctantly, he summoned the Aegis, and a pair of purple-colored hand gloves appeared on his hands. He hadn't planned to use them, but the dire situation forced his hand to his surprise. When the Fenrir lunged at him again, it passed right through him. Bel became transparent and swiftly mounted the Fenrir's head. Feeling pity for the Fenrir, knowing it couldn't harm him now, Bel took out his hammer and delivered several powerful blows. He realized that the Aegis was the gauntlet of darkness, enhancing his physical abilities by leaps and bounds, with its strength growing over time. With several powerful strikes, Bel managed to defeat the Fenrir. He retrieved his Aegis, thanking the gods, and reflected on how the dark, divine arms possessed special abilities from the outset, though they couldn't be fully utilized in battle. Sinking deeper into darkness as time passed, curious about the presence of a Fenrir in the forest, Bel recalled there had been none in his past life, but he set aside his worries. He discovered he could now use the hammer's abilities and understood that hunting strong monsters was more effective than battling hordes of weaker ones. Bel decided to test the hammer's capabilities. The scene shifted to Sarah, who sat under a tree outside the mansion. Crafting a flower crown, she thought Bel would like it. Jessica arrived and demanded the crown from Sarah, mocking its suitability for for someone as unkempt as her. She then sought the opinion of a man named Spin. Spin agreed with Jessica, prompting her to take action. He produced a whip and destroyed the flower crown. Jessica expressed boredom and lamented the lack of activities. She summoned a gun into her hand, suggesting they practice shooting targets. Just as she directed this towards Sarah, Belle intervened, intercepting the attack with Avalon. He offered to entertain Jessica, noting her boredom, and claiming he was looking for an excuse to test his divine armament. Jessica demanded to know why Belle was there, and insisted that no mongrel should interfere with her fun. Sarah hugged Belle, and Belle apologized, reassuring Jessica that everything was fine. Now Spin confronted Belle, questioning how he dared to glare at Jessica. Belle thought Spin must be Jessica's attendant, and admonished him for speaking rudely to a duke's son. Spin retorted that he wouldn't show respect to a child of a concubine. Jessica remarked that Belle was usually meek, but managed to defeat Zane, explaining his current boldness. Spin commented on Zane's carelessness in losing to Belle. Jessica speculated it might have been a fluke, questioning how badly Zane had to mess up to lose against Belle. Belle challenged Jessica to see for herself, whether it was luck or skill. Infuriated, Jessica ordered Spin to deal with Belle. Spin drew his whip, but as it struck the ground, the grass froze. Belle realized Spin was a D-rank paladin, much stronger than Zane, who was only an E rank. Spin warned Belle not to flee, freezing Belle's legs, then his arms and torso. Rendering him immobile, he threatened to beat Belle severely. Belle remarked that Spin talked too much, and vowed that he would pay for making Sarah cry. Spin warned Belle not to underestimate him, and attacked with his whip. But Belle dodged swiftly. Jessica was shocked by Belle's agility. Belle thought that for AD rank, Spin wasn't bad at handling his divine armament, but compared to the training Belle underwent in his past life, it was nothing special. Sarah commented in amazement, likening Belle's movements to a dance. Spin taunted Belle, saying he seemed good at running away. Belle declared he wouldn't dodge anymore, and was curious to see if Spin could turn him into an icicle. Spin retorted that Belle was even dumber than he thought, then froze Belle's hand and leg. Sarah was alarmed by the sight. Spin remarked that Belle was now immobilized, and he could take his time dealing with him. Belle asked if that was all Spin had, declaring it was now his turn. He summoned the Ragnarok gun. Freeing one of his hands, Spin was astonished, exclaiming it was impossible using the gun. Belle managed to free himself. Jessica was shocked to see Belle wield two divine armaments, and wondered how he could use their attributes. Belle targeted Spin, declaring it was time for punishment. Spin encased himself in ice, challenging Belle to break free. Belle confidently remarked it was easy, then fired a shot that struck Spin. Jessica was astonished that Belle had broken the ice and proven strong enough to defeat a Derringer. Realizing, as an E-Ranger herself, she wouldn't stand a chance against him, Belle assured Jessica it was all over. She trembled, pulling out her gun and warning him to stay back. Nervously, she misfired a few shots and backed away, intimidated by Belle's presence. Belle warned her not to mess with Sarah again. Jessica, frightened, fled from the scene. Sarah approached Belle, hugging him and asking if he was hurt by the whip. Belle reassured her he was fine, and that her safety was all that mattered. Sarah admired Belle's strength, to which he agreed, promising to become even stronger for her sake. Sarah then showed Belle the flower crown she had made for him, despite one being destroyed. She offered him the one she had made for herself. Placing it on his head, she thanked him for always protecting her. Belle was touched to receive such a gift from her, thinking that one day he would have the entire nation revere him. However, there were still problems. He remembered that even the employed, knights and others, looked down on him for being the child of a concubine. Despite defeating Zane and Jessica, he doubted they would change. They might return to harass Sarah again. So Belle resolved to protect her and secure his status within the household. To do so, the scene shifted to Galion, who was practicing swordsmanship. Belle approached him, and asked for permission to participate in the C rank exam. Galion asked, "Why did you want to do that?" Bell replied that he wanted to serve the king as a member of their house. He reminded them that acknowledging their status as the ducal family meant they had an obligation to complete tasks, for them usually involving protecting VIPs, exterminating monsters, and the like. The fastest way to improve Bell's status in his family was to earn achievements by undertaking these difficult tasks. To participate, he needed to achieve a high rank. Galion commented that he could see Bell was full of ambition, but it was too early for him. Most had to be fully fledged paladins before achieving the C rank. Currently, Bell was at the F rank, having just received his divine armament. If he wanted to be promoted, he should start with the E rank exam. Bell then showed a Fong and asked if that changed Galion's mind. Galion was shocked to see it was the Fong of Fenrir and asked how Bell obtained it. Bell took out his hammer and explained that it was tricky, but he managed to tame the beast. Galion was impressed that Bell could use attributes and had defeated a D rank alone, leading him to believe Bell was strong enough for the C rank. He allowed Bell to take the exam, but cautioned him not to disappoint. Bell agreed with determination. As Bell arrived to give the exams, there were many applicants. A boy remarked that the C rank was like a wall for many people. A second man added that there were casualties every year, and he wondered about the exact workings of the exam. As Bell passed by, others were shocked to see a child. Among them, it was Bell. Bell approached a lady whom he assumed was the receptionist. She confirmed and asked if he came with his parents. Bell replied that he was there to take the exam. She was taken aback and suggested he come back when he was older. Bell insisted she stop treating him like a kid. He was a paladin too. A boy intervened and told Bell to leave. Bell was surprised and realized there might be trouble. Others noticed the boy who warned Bell. It was Lin. Lin wielded the divine armament known as the Wind Sword, said to slash 8 times with each swing. A girl mentioned she was his fan. Lin told Bell that to reach C rank, he had to be as great as him. He then asked Bell if he had any divine armament. Bell agreed and showed his scabbard, prompting Lin to laugh and declare that Bell wouldn't be able to use it as a weapon. Others also criticized Bell, calling him useless. Lin said he didn't mind if Bell wanted to die there, but he disliked the idea that Bell's participation will make them look equal. He again told Bell to hurry back to his mother. Ignoring him, Bell asked the lady to register him. She asked if he was serious. Bell affirmed, saying he was resolved to do it. She told him that Bell needed to be at least D rank or have a recommendation from a B rank or above paladin to enter. Bell showed her the letter and explained that he had obtained the recommendation. She was shocked that such a young boy had received a recommendation, and upon checking, she discovered it was from Galion, confirming Bell was Galion's son. As the contestants gathered, a knight announced he would explain how the C rank exam would proceed. First, they would use a teleportation stone to travel underground, where they needed to retrieve the light jewel from the 5th floor. Within 5 hours, there were only 3 crystals, indicating that only 3 people would be promoted to C rank. The contestants were shocked to hear this. Lin confidently claimed 1 crystal for himself. Bell also entered the area. The man announced, "Let's start the exam." Everyone began entering, and as Bell arrived, he noticed they were all dispersed to different locations. On the 1st floor, he wondered what to do. First, he started walking, thinking that the dungeons seemed vast. But he had 5 hours, which should be enough time. Since he had the opportunity, it would be a waste not to make good use of it, knowing there were many monsters in the dungeon, and considering that a paladin's mana increased with each monster defeated. He decided to hunt down all the monsters. Other people were battling monsters and encountering difficulties in slaying them. After Lin effortlessly dispatched a monster, he asked others how they found it. Hard to defeat them, others praised Lin for his skill. Lin replied that they could say that again. He wasn't just an average person like the rest of them. Though frustrating, it was true. Others commented that thanks to Lin, it seemed they would pass easily. Len urged them to do their best to earn points through their efforts, dismissing the weaker members as good only for loafing around. Then they came across a room with 3 entrances. Len speculated it must be the final room, and wondered if it would at least be entertaining. As they entered, they found numerous D-rank monsters inside. Len pointed out that the jewels were on a pedestal. At the far end of the room, a very peculiar monster appeared, and Len swiftly attacked, attempting to cut it into small pieces. However, his attack seemed ineffective, and the monster retaliated. Knocking Len back, Len wondered why his slashes didn't work. The other 2 contestants were shocked and engaged in battles with different monsters, one with a flying creature and another with a liquid monster. The man realized his physical attacks had no effect on the liquid monster, while the girl struggled to hit the flying monster with fire due to its wind manipulation. Len concluded that this was the final test for the C-rank design, so each monster countered their divine armaments. As a giant monster prepared to attack, Bell intervened just in time, defeating it with his hammer. Bell remarked it was a close call and that he had enjoyed the hunt. Len was surprised to see Bell there. A jelly-like monster attacked Bell, but he swiftly blocked it with his sword. Len was further shocked to see Bell's divine armament transform. Bell then used his gun to shoot down the flying monster. The other 2 contestants were astonished, with the girl noting that Bell's supposed divine armament was just a scabbard. Len wondered how Bell could possess multiple divine armaments and handle them. Bell explained he was running out of time, urging them to end it, and proceeded to defeat all the monsters. Len found it unbelievable as Bell defeated the monsters and reached the jewels. The girl approached, praising Bell for his amazing feat. The boy expressed disbelief that Bell had managed it alone, and asked how many divine armaments he possessed. Despite this, Len still referred to Bell with disdain. The girl remarked that Len was weak, and the boy agreed. Admitting he had misjudged Len, they discussed their options, suggesting they team up with Bell to retrieve the jewels. An achieved C-rank, Bell had already taken 1 jewel and proceeded to destroy the other 2 with his hammer. Confused, the boy asked why Bell destroyed the jewels. Bell explained that he already had 1, and if they wanted to advance, they should earn their own, instead of exploiting others and mocking them. He criticized them for their attitude of taking advantage of others to pass the test and their lack of worthiness to be called knights. Len, despite being called weak, thanked Bell and declared that he wouldn't let it end there, implying a determination to prove himself. After passing and achieving C-rank, Bell felt that Len's honesty and ambition were surprising. He bid Len farewell, then emerged from the exam and officially became a C-rank. His mana had also increased from defeating the monsters, and he resolved to gain status at home to protect Sarah. The scene shifts to a mansion where Gallion sat with 2 men. One of the men understood it was related to karma, and the paladins plotting to overthrow Melda. Gallion confirmed this, mentioning that 3B rank paladins were en route to their kingdom, and their family had been ordered to eliminate them. The man noted that Shrub had already lost a small unit to these 3. The second man added that they had even defeated a unit from the famed Shrub. They learned that their enemies possessed divine armaments with the forbidden grimoire pentagram. Gallion agreed and stated they could not allow karma's actions to go unchecked. They needed to eradicate them completely. A man wondered where Jin was. Just as a book appeared, a boy entered announcing that it was all taken care of. The organization had been wiped out, and he was the reason for it. He declared his intention to become the next Duke. The scene shifts to Sarah's room, where she was served a plain bun and tea by a waitress. As Sarah thanked her, she noticed that the waitress didn't seem happy to serve her. As she left, Bell entered Sarah's room with a box announcing his return. Sarah was overjoyed to see him and asked where he had been. Expressing her worry, he apologized, explaining that an important work had come up, and then he mentioned bringing souvenirs to make up for it. He served her food, and she was delighted to see apple pie. She thanked him and asked if they could eat together. Finding her adorable, he realized it wasn't the time for enjoyment, noting that her food was as ordinary as always, due to the servants Belle needed to work on improving Sarah's living conditions. As soon as possible, the scene then shifts to the galley, where the eldest son, Jin, arrived. Galleon mentioned that Jean had already reached a rank, as he had vowed to defeat Karma on his own. A man remarked that Jin's achievement was expected, while another said Jean was in a league of his own. Jean sat there asking if everything was done for the day. Galleon denied and said that the king had assigned him another duty, to guard Princess Ricky Shudik. Villain Ricky would soon travel to their neighboring country, and they were tasked with providing her full protection. For a safe trip, a man asked if the royal guards weren't enough for that. Razor replied that they should be wary of Karma, so they were no longer reliable. The man wondered if they should go through Ricotta Pass, thinking it would be the safest route. Just then Belle arrived and asked them to wait for a moment. Gallion mentioned that it seemed the exam was now over. Belle agreed and showed his card, revealing that he was now a C rank. The two men were shocked that Belle had achieved C rank at such a young age. Galleon asked why Belle had interrupted them. Belle replied that he wanted to suggest an alternative route for the trip. The man asked if that was his advice. Belle agreed and explained that monsters didn't appear on the Ricotta route. Instead, bandits frequented the area, extending the journey to Arsha by 3 whole days. He suggested choosing the Monster Plains path instead. A man expressed surprise, mentioning the dangerous monsters there. Belle denied this, stating that the monsters inhabiting the plains were mainly death, chimeras, and dark horrors, which were nocturnal and thus safe to pass during the daytime. He added that this route would only take 1 day to reach the destination. The man agreed with Belle's suggestion. Gallion thought that Belle was sharp and knowledgeable about monsters. Belle asked if they would entrust the task to him, and proposed guiding the princess through a safe and fast route. Jean appeared intimidating and questioned Belle's audacity to speak out. Belle found it troublesome and realized he had forgotten about his older brother. He then asserted seriously, revealing his divine armament, and stating he could safely escort the princess without any trouble. Jean dismissed Belle's claim, asking if that included him. Belle replied that a knight stands by his word. Razor shouted at Belle to be silent, implying his words challenged Jin. Belle remembered Razor as the B rank paladin. Jin instructed Jester to test Belle. Razor drew his divine armament, intending to put Belle in his place, and rushed to attack him to their surprise. Belle blocked the attack with his sword. Jean noted that Belle was faster than expected and seemed ready to take on AB rank in single combat. Gallion shouted that it was enough and assigned the task to Belle. Jester asked if Gallion was serious. Gallion replied that Karma was no longer a concern, making it the perfect first job for Belle. Belle thanked him and promised not to let Gallion down. As he left, Belle reflected on the royal palace shooting, Villain Castle, his first visit there in this life, and his memories from his past life. Upon entering, guards stopped him. Belle showed his card and explained he was there to escort the princess. The guards were surprised that such a young person was a C rank, but allowed him to pass, wondering if he could really protect Her Highness. Upon meeting her, the princess commented that he was a cute bodyguard, but insisted she didn't need his protection. At Rick's destination, a man sat on the throne and asked another if Rick had departed for Arsha yet. The second man replied affirmatively, mentioning she was accompanied by several royal guards and Belle. The Duke's son, the man, commented that Belle was still a child, though evidently talented or otherwise noteworthy, and cautioned not to let their guard down. He also gave permission to take action if the situation worsened. The second man assured him not to worry, as assassination was his specialty. As the carriage departed, Belle sat with Rika and contemplated his role in escorting someone summoned. For a ceremony in Arsha, a simple yet important duty, he resolved not to make mistakes, but felt unwelcome. Belle apologized, asking why she had refused his escort. She replied that she preferred not to depend on anyone else, and felt strong enough with her divine armament, implying she wasn't weak. Belle agreed, but found her arrogant. Rika then noticed the festival outside and became joyful, prompting Belle to laugh along with her. Rika asked, "What's that?" Belle apologized and explained that the festival reminded him of his little sister, who he believed would have reacted the same way. Rika asked if they got along well. Belle agreed, saying they always played together when she was young, pretending to be horses and other things. Rika mentioned she had many siblings, but didn't trust any of them. Belle commented that it was similar in his household. His older siblings teased them, and without a mother to protect them. He understood her feelings. He encouraged her to rely on him. She replied that she didn't want to depend on anyone and asked him not to assume he understood her situation, finding it disrespectful upon reaching their destination. Thieves waited hidden behind trees. Despite a full day of travel, they arrived as planned in a single day. As they exited the carriage, the gates opened, revealing Knight's LED by Peter, who welcomed Rika. She asked who he was, and Peter introduced himself as one of the knights, expressing happiness at her arrival. Belle felt he had heard Peter's name before. Finding it strange, they were welcoming them outside town, with numerous guards making Rick an easy target. Just as he noticed a knife aimed at Rick, he saved her using Avalon. The royal guards recognized it as an enemy attack, and Belle noticed several more knives flying towards her. Peter drew his sword to shield Rika, declaring he wouldn't let anyone harm her. Observing his skill, Belle realized Peter was likely the B rank. The assassins began to flee. Peter ordered his knights to pursue and apprehend them, while ensuring Rika's safe escort away from the castle. Belle assured Peter of his trust and urged him to go. Peter escorted Rika into the castle, where another knight reassured her of safety. Noting the castle's ample guard protection, she replied that she could protect herself. The knight insisted he would gladly lay down his life to save her. Suddenly, Peter killed the knight, shocking Rika. Peter remarked that the knight had willingly sacrificed his life, which he deemed insignificant. Worried, Rika asked Peter what he was doing. He coldly replied that he was there to assassinate her. She recoiled in fear, attempting to summon her weapon, but trembling too much to succeed. Desperate, she hoped someone would come to her rescue. Suddenly, a knight burst in through a broken window thrown by Belle. Belle apologized to Rika for arriving late, appearing alongside the knight, and he asked to leave it all to him. Peter said that he thought all the guards took him, and he would commend Belle. But did he really think he could take on others? Belle remembered who Peter was. Then Belle said the real name of Peter was Vaughn, and his divine armament was 2 sets of the 3 thunder darts, with his targets being Shribe, Firmith, and Marquez. Peter was shocked and asked how Belle knew all that. Belle thought it was because he was the one who caught Peter in a past life. Belle said he never thought Peter would try to kill Rick, and there wasn't any way he could explain his way out of there, even though he was acting as the guard's leader. Peter commented that it was interesting, and it seemed Belle had investigated Peter. But did he really think a C ranker could defeat a B ranker? Belle replied that a B rank was a bit too much, but if it was Peter, there wouldn't be any problem. Peter then threw his sharp darts at Belle, but Belle dodged them all, and at the same time, Peter rushed to attack him. Belle remembered that Peter would slash diagonally from his right, so he dodged that. Then Peter circled around Belle's back and tried to stab him. Belle used his sword to block the attack, stating that he knew all of Peter's moves. Peter was shocked, wondering how Belle could keep up with his speed. Belle replied that he could kill Peter at any time, so it would be best for him to surrender. Enraged, Peter attempted to attack again, but Belle knew that his rage would make his attacks predictable, which was Peter's weakness. Peter attacked with a downward slash from the front, followed by a diagonal slash, throwing a dart, a flurry of stabs, and an upward slash. Belle dodged all of Peter's attacks. Rika thought Belle was amazing, noting that despite being a kid, he fought as if it were no big deal, while she herself was all talk. Belle then landed 2 slashes on Peter. Peter realized that Belle knew all his moves. As he had warned, now it was Peter's turn to play his main card. Belle remembered what that would be, and replied that he could handle it. Peter asked if Belle was sure about that, then took out the tears of the Dragon King and drank them. Belle thought that the tears were extremely rare and temporarily multiplied their mana by drinking them. Realizing that Belle was now in trouble, Peter warned Belle that he would regret not killing him earlier. He threw his darts, which came dangerously close to Belle, but did not attack directly, instead using them to create a lightning cage. Belle felt himself lifted by the magnetism and took out his shield to try to deflect it, but the wind circled inside the barrier. Peter intensified his attack, causing Belle to scream in pain. Peter declared he would finish it quickly, but Belle resolved not to die there. Suddenly arrows came to attack the darts and free Belle. Rick had fired them, explaining that since Belle had risked his life for her, she couldn't stay scared forever. Enraged, Peter rushed to attack her. Belle thanked Rick for her help, and then slashed his sword at Peter to finish him off. Afterward, Belle asked if Rick was hurt. She came to check on him and said he was the one who got hurt. She apologized, feeling responsible for involving him in the succession conflict. He replied not to worry and reassured her that she seemed strong. She said she wasn't as strong as him and thanked him, promising to always help him whenever he got in trouble. As she extended her hand for a handshake, he knelt down and thanked her for her offer. Rick then took out her ring and said she wanted to give it to him as a token of her gratitude and friendship. He was surprised to see the ring. Belle returned to his mansion and was welcomed by Gallion. Gallion expressed his appreciation, mentioning that he had heard how Belle had protected Rick. Belle agreed and stated that he had completed his task. Gallion then noticed the Ring of Solomon in Belle's hand. Belle explained that Rika had given it to him as a sign of her trust. Gallion thought to himself that the ring was a treasure of the royal family and possessed special mana. He found it unbelievable that Belle had managed to acquire it. Realizing that Belle was even greater than he had thought, Gallion then told Belle that he would arrange for him to enroll at Athena. Before long, Belle was surprised, knowing Athena as an elite paladin institute, open only to people from distinguished families. Most of the Karastrophe family's children were taught by private tutors, but there was a tradition where candidates for the next head of the family would enroll at Athena to learn about society. Belle realized this meant he was on track to become the heir. He replied that he would follow Gallion's wishes. Gallion assured Belle that he would notify him when the time came, asking him to keep training until then. Belle stood up and mentioned that he had a request. Afterwards, Belle and Sarah went to a room, and she was delighted, asking if it was her new room. He confirmed that their father had given him permission. Belle thought that moving into the main building would also improve their status. Sarah lay down on the bed, expressing her happiness. She noticed a cut on Belle's hand and asked what had happened. He replied that he had been injured on his first job. She playfully told the pain to go away. Acting childishly, Belle thanked her and said it felt better now. He hoped that Sarah would now be treated better. Belle realized he needed to focus on the future, especially safeguarding their home 5 years from then. He worried that she might end up in danger again, and resolved to gather information to find that boy. To do that, he needed to become the heir. The scene shifted to a room where Jean was drawing. Razor entered and knelt down, apologizing for what he was about to say. But it seemed that Belle was destined to enroll in Athena. Belle was the first to register since Jin's enrollment, making him a competitor for the heir position. Razor suggested they eliminate Belle before he could succeed. Jean dismissed their concerns, stating that Belle was not a threat at the moment. He believed that Belle, growing stronger, could actually benefit him in the long run, and Jean enjoyed challenging things once they were completed. Razor agreed with Jin's perspective, but thought to himself that, even though Jean said that it was still too risky to leave Belle alone, Belle possessed numerous divine armaments and had already defeated AB rank paladin at such a young age. Razor felt the need to act if that was the case. Meanwhile, Belle practiced his swordsmanship, contemplating that what he needed most at that time were unique abilities used by B rank or higher individuals. Determined, he shouted aloud, wondering if he could master them before enrolling in Athena, knowing it would require hunting many monsters. It was then that he saw Razor approaching, catching sight of him through the reflection of his sword. Bell asked Razor what he wanted. Razor apologized for his actions the other day, and explained that it was ordered by Jean, though it was still impolite to point his blade at a duke's son. Bell wondered about this, and considered Razor might be a good person after all. Bell reassured Razor not to worry, as he didn't mind. Razor thanked him for his leniency, and then mentioned he had something else to discuss. Bell asked what it was Razor asked, if Bell would like to join him on a monster subjugation task. He explained that Jean and the other paladins had other plans, and Razor was impressed by Bell's recent performance. He hoped Bell could assist him. Bell wondered why Jin's attendant would come to him for help. As the son of a duke, Bell felt he couldn't refuse, but he knew he needed to take this seriously. He accepted Razor's request. Razor bowed and thanked Bell. He thought to himself that he needed to use this task to take care of that. Bell then asked where they were going. Razor replied that it was a remote area called Ithaca. Bell wondered about the place, and considered it the perfect location to use his special method. To increase his mana, Bell thought of ambrosia, a rare item that permanently increases mana when consumed. As they continued, Bell thought that if he could obtain some, he might be able to reach B rank without having to hunt tons of monsters first. However, there was only one extremely rare chance to obtain ambrosia, and that was by entering a hidden dungeon. One of those dungeons was Ithaca. That night, Bell and Razor were in a bar. Razor suggested going over everything once again, as their task was to defeat the Leviathans. It was confirmed that there were several specimens of that powerful C-rank monster, and they needed to deal with it swiftly, as it was already getting late. They planned to start the next day, and Razor advised Bell to get some rest. Bell agreed and said he was heading to his room. As he left, Razor thought that Bell was an idiot and didn't realize he would die soon. Razor planned to make it look like an accident the next day. Despite Bell's talent, he was still a C-rank adventurer and should be easy enough to eliminate. At night, Bell looked outside and wondered if Razor had already fallen asleep. He took out his shield and used an air spell to make it fly. As he traveled with it, he remembered ambrosia, a secret dungeon that no one had reached before. In his past life, Bell and his master had searched for it long ago, so no one else should even know it existed. Bell reached a cave-like entrance, and upon entering, he saw 3 gates. He thought that the hidden dungeon was divided into ranks, distinguishable by the color of the gates. The green gate was for B rank, and upon clearing it, adventurers received an amorous corresponding to the dungeon's rank. Bell anticipated a mana boost from it. However, to clear the dungeon, he had to defeat a boss in his past life with his master. He hadn't been allowed to attempt it, because he was too inexperienced at the time. Certainly facing the B-rank boss wouldn't be easy for him now either, but he couldn't retreat out of fear. He needed to grow stronger as quickly as possible. To change Sarah's future, he entered the green gate. Inside, he encountered a ghost and began battling a ghost knight, wielding a sword despite firing several shots. He found the ghost easily dodged them. He then tried attacking with his hammer, but discovered that physical attacks had no effect. Switching to his sword, he used magic instead. Even then, the Ghost Knight proved resilient against magic attacks. Bell had never encountered such a monster before, but felt it was of C-rank strength currently at a disadvantage. Bell noticed the shield the monster wielded and thought there must be some vulnerability to exploit. Charging a fire bullet with mana seemed like it would be effective. Then he took out Ragnarok and began charging it. As the Ghost Knight approached to attack, Bell fired and killed the monster. He remarked that the magical fire attack was effective in melting the armor of the Ghost Knight. He knew he would have been in trouble without a weapon with such a beneficial attribute. Bell guessed it was to be expected in a special dungeon, and was grateful for the chance to obtain rare items from monsters. Currently, he found a mythic drink that restored his stamina and mana. He drank it, and continued to defeat monsters with his various divine armaments. Eventually, he arrived in front of a gate, and wondered whether the boss would be a snake or a demon. He entered the gate and found himself in what seemed like an arena. In the distance, he saw red flames and a monster. Realizing it was the first time he had encountered one. Since being reincarnated, the monster approached Bell. He declared, "You must be the boss." The boss didn't reply and closed in on Bell, launching a powerful attack. Bell dodged, realizing he would be in trouble if it landed. He leapt to avoid another slash from the boss and countered with a sword strike. But the armor proved too resilient, evading the boss's attacks. Bell considered using his gun. When the shot hit Bell, noticed the boss had magic resistance. The boss swung the sword again, and Bell blocked with a shield, though it pushed him back. The boss fell, silent momentarily, before lunging at Bell. Barely dodging, Bell realized he was running low on mana. Unsure what to do next amidst the smoke, a sword was thrown towards him. Bell blocked it with his shield. Realizing it was a diversion, suddenly the boss attacked from behind, delivering a powerful punch that knocked Bell down. As the boss attempted a kick, Bell managed to evade, grateful for the mythic drink he had consumed. Though it was his last, the boss retrieved his sword. Bell decided to gamble, knowing Achilles was his heaviest divine arm. He thought to use the wind attribute to propel his shield, and warned the boss not to underestimate its offensive capabilities. As he threw the shield, the boss dodged and retaliated, catching Bell off guard. Bell felt he couldn't evade and lost his shield in the process. To his surprise, the shield rebounded and struck the boss. Distracting him, Bell seized the opportunity, leaping to attack with his hammer's attributes. As the boss staggered, Bell remarked on the risk of using Achilles as a boomerang, but praised the effective strike. Now all he needed to do was penetrate the armor. The boss stood up, removing its armor, leaving Bell puzzled by its actions. The boss made a swift move with its sword, rushing to attack Bell even faster. Bell struggled to block with his sword, but was pushed back against the wall. The boss appeared enraged, closing in on Bell.